Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Gold Rush Parker Schnabel forced to face his biggest fear. Gold Rush veteran Parker Schnabel talked about facing a huge fear of his during season 14. In the 10 years Parker has been mining the Canadian Yukon Territory, he has never made such a big gamble. Keep reading to see what fork in the road Parker Schnabel had to face and what his ultimate decision was. Parker Schnabel faces a huge decision for his team. Parker Schnabel has mined in the Canadian Yukon Territory for over 10 years. During that time, he has never faced as big of a gamble as he did during the season 14 premiere of Gold Rush. He spoke to people about the difficult decision he had to make and why it felt like a fork in the road. We were at a real fork in the road in terms of taking on way bigger risks. Spending a pile of money on new ground or downsizing, Parker said during his interview with People. We had this really big choice to make early on in the season, and those big decisions matter quite a bit. In the last few moments of the season premiere, Parker had to decide whether or not to spend $15 million to obtain Dominion Creek. The land could potentially hold $160 million worth of gold. However, Dominion Creek is also 40 feet underground, so Parker will also have to spend millions to be able to unearth any of it. Despite what he stood to gain, the decision to spend $15 million was hard for him. What's next on Gold Rush for Parker? That kind of investment would put a lot of pressure on anyone. The Gold Rush star's business has grown significantly over the years. Parker knows that his family and the families of his crew depend on the business and the decisions he makes. I probably would have rather lost money and kept the team as a whole than downsized, honestly, Parker said, adding, getting out of business entirely would possibly be more appealing to him than downsizing at this point. Keeping everything going takes a lot of revenue. We need a lot of ground, and we need a lot of ounces out of the ground to stay afloat. Because we're a big operation, Parker told People, breaking up the crew he has spent a decade building is his biggest fear at this point. Only time will tell if purchasing Dominion Creek was the right move for Parker Schnabel and his crew. He said that they wouldn't know if it was worth it from a profit standpoint for several more years. Gold Rush airs on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Discovery Channel. The entire series is also available to stream on Max. Parker Schnabel, the young mining prodigy of the Gold Rush series, was never one to back down from a challenge. From the vast wilderness of the Klondike to the treacherous terrains of Alaska, he had faced myriad obstacles, all in pursuit of the gleaming promise of gold. But this season was different. This season, Parker was confronted with something far more daunting than the unforgiving landscape or the relentless grind of the mining season. This time, he had to face his biggest fear: failure. The season had started promisingly. Parker had mapped out new, untapped claims and invested in cutting-edge equipment. His team, seasoned and loyal, was ready to take on the world. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, they encountered nothing but trouble. Machinery broke down, weather conditions were worse than ever, and the gold they so desperately sought seemed to be evading them. The weight of expectation hung heavy on Parker's shoulders. The pressure to not only succeed but to exceed the astronomical goals he set for himself was immense. For someone who had always been a prodigy, failure was a concept he could scarcely comprehend, let alone face. In the stillness of the Alaskan night, Parker often found himself alone, staring at the star-filled sky, questioning his decisions. The vast, unending darkness above mirrored his growing uncertainty. It was during one of these sleepless nights that Parker realized his fear wasn't just about the lack of gold. It was about letting down his team, his family, and himself. The fear of not living up to his own legend. To confront his fear, Parker knew he had to take a step back and reassess his approach. He called a meeting with his team, something he rarely did unless absolutely necessary. Around the crackling campfire, under the shimmering northern lights, Parker spoke candidly about his fears and the heavy burden of their shared dreams. The team listened intently, their faces illuminated by the fire's glow, reflecting a mix of surprise and solidarity. It was a pivotal moment, one that shifted the dynamic from leader and followers to a united front against the looming specter of failure. With renewed determination, they devised a new plan. Instead of chasing the larger, riskier claims, they decided to focus on smaller, more reliable sites. It was a humbling move for Parker, who had always aimed for the biggest prize. But this shift in strategy was necessary. It was a gamble on certainty over ambition, and it was exactly what they needed. Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, their efforts began to pay off. The once dismal sluice boxes started to show flecks of gold, rekindling hope within the team. It wasn't the mother lode they had dreamed of, but it was progress. Each small success was a victory against the creeping dread of failure. Parker's leadership evolved. He became more open to feedback, more willing to delegate, and more appreciative of the collective strength of his team. Yet, the true test of Parker's resolve came one fateful afternoon. The team had discovered a promising vein of gold, but accessing it required navigating a narrow, treacherous ravine. It was a risky operation, one that Parker knew could either make or break their season. As the leader, he took it upon himself to lead the charge, despite his underlying fear of failing yet again. Equipped with safety gear and his characteristic resolve, Parker descended into the ravine. The path was precarious, with loose rocks and steep drops threatening to undermine his every step. The team watched anxiously from above, their collective breath held as Parker navigated the perilous terrain. It was a grueling, nerve-wracking experience, but Parker pressed on, driven by the weight of their shared aspirations and his personal battle against the fear that had haunted him. Hours felt like days, but finally, Parker emerged from the ravine, his face streaked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes shining with triumph. They had done it. They had reached the gold. The camp erupted in cheers, the weight of weeks of anxiety and fear lifting in that jubilant moment. It was not just a victory of gold, but a triumph over the fear that had loomed over Parker like a shadow. This season was a turning point for Parker Schnabel. It wasn't the biggest haul or the most profitable year, but it was the season he learned to face his fears head on. He discovered that true strength lay not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to confront it. His journey this year wasn't just about mining gold from the earth. It was about unearthing the resilience and fortitude within himself. As the season drew to a close, Parker stood at the edge of his claim, the setting sun casting a golden hue over the landscape. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, more fears to face, and more mountains to climb. But for now, he had conquered his greatest fear, and that victory was worth more than all the gold in the world.